Hey guys, Thomas the Sulu Jr. here, aka Mustached Tom, here to review the movie Justice League. So, it has been a long time coming, but it's finally happened. Justice League has finally come together, and it's gone through a bit of a messy situation and all that stuff happened, but I'm here to review this movie. It's going to be a spoiler review, so here we go. The movie begins with a weird sort of opening where it shows Superman being recorded by these kids, and although the scene was a little bit unnecessary, it's a unnecessary little fluff piece, it's whatever. So anyways, we cut to Batman doing his thing where he's beating up some generic guy, and then he's like, oh, this para-creature is it feeds off of fear, so I want you to be fearful so the creature comes after you. The creature explodes, and Batman's like, what's happened? So anyways, we see some more news article stuff about Superman being quote-unquote dead, even though in this movie, oddly enough, they decide to keep him dead, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense considering in Batman vs. Superman, they hold the whole little flicker thing of the dust sort of coming up like this, meaning it was supposed to be some sort of representation of, oh, is Superman alive? But I guess they decided to keep him dead, which was an odd choice, but I guess that's what they decided to go with. Nonetheless, the crime rate is increasing. We have this big crime rate stuff going on. We see this big crime robbery happening, and that's when we see Wonder Woman just sort of be there. I don't know how she ended up there, but she ended up stopping them, busting in, using her super speed to throw the bomb up and then deflect some bullets to save a bunch of people. And we see that Batman was checking out the area of Wonder Woman. I think some of this stuff happened prior, like a flashback sort of sense. And I'll say this now, yes, the pacing of this movie is a bit wonky. It's not very surprising considering Batman vs. Superman, one of its biggest issues was its sense of pacing and transitional shots. This very much in the same vein has that same issue, and just as an early example, when Batman goes to check out this whole place, we don't know when this is actually happening. If this happened before Wonder Woman's little attack, or if he was checking it out after, even though he already kind of met Wonder Woman. I don't know. So then he goes to visit Aquaman because, he already has the information. If you've seen Batman vs. Superman, I guess they do a little bit of setup. He has it out up on the computer and whatnot. So anyways, they go to see, Alfred mentions Barry, which is this version of Flash. And then, we then cut to Cyborg, we hear about the first version of Cyborg and how he died or whatever. And then we see Barry visit his father, and this is his introduction as a superhero, or just this guy who has a father who's supposedly wrongly accused, and so on and so forth. But the father guy's like, oh, stop visiting me. And then anyway, Cyborg realizes that he has the ability to update, and he realizes this because he can now fly, which is apparently something he couldn't do before. And he mentions how these were alien updates, which is apparently what these creatures, these parademons, I believe they were called, are. They are these alien-type creatures, supposedly. We learn that there are these cube things, the sort of evil MacGuffin of this movie, and there are three of them. One of them is hidden among the Amazons, and the cube begins to open up, unleashing the villain, the supposed villain of this movie, called, I believe his name is Steppenwolf. I'll just call him Wolf for short. And he does start off as a pretty interesting villain. He does some pretty interesting things where he takes out the Amazons, and he's able to do that and take the cube for himself. But they have a pretty good, interesting chase scene where that all transpires. Then we go to see, as soon as I believe it's Wonder Woman's mother who sent the message. I believe that's her mother. I'm not sure. If anyone in the comments wants to confirm that, let me know if that was her mother that sent the little fire shot, if you've seen the movie. Anyways, we cut to Lois Lane talking with Martha, Superman's mom, for those of you who don't know, about, how she misses him and so on and so forth. So anyways, Cyborg learns to do the Iron Man thing where he has these shifting screens and he's seeing all of Batman's stuff. Meanwhile, Diana, Wonder Woman, visits Bruce, and interestingly enough, they talk about this little flashback of war, and they show the Amazons, they show the Atlanteans, and they show the Green Lanterns also included in this little scene. So I assume they intend to remake a Green Lantern movie next, I think, maybe? I think that's their plan. I'm not 100% sure about that. Anyways, these supposed gods managed to hold back the creatures, and the three cubes that were mentioned were trusted to the Atlanteans, and one to the Amazons, and one to the humans, which was apparently, supposedly buried. And we see that Cyborg manages to continue to keep track of Batman, which is kind of odd, and how many people gain access and eventually just learn Batman's true identity in this very movie is a little bit, again, odd. These are some odd choices, but whatever. So anyways, Bruce eventually meets Barry, and he's like, hey, I know you have powers. And then he's like, I'll throw my bat shuriken, I think it's a shuriken, at you. And Barry uses his speed to get out of the way. And, he just manages to know that Bruce is Batman or something, or he mentions it, or something happens along those lines. And then Barry's like, yeah, I'm in. So he was pretty easily convinced. Bruce mentions how being rich is his power, which, he's a pretty stern character, and he had that pretty funny line of just power. Anyways, Cyborg hacks into Batman's terminal, which is crazy, because, geez, Cyborg, how crazy powerful are you, man? Anyway, he manages to talk to Wonder Woman via hacks, kind of literally, I guess, and then she decides to save or go towards him. So we cut to Aquaman, who's saving some dude, and then he sees some green blood, and this makes him go under the water, go back under the water to check out what the heck was going on. And we see the second cube is being activated, where Wolf once again appears. Steppenwolf, which I mentioned I would be calling Wolf throughout the review, takes the second cube, fights off the two guards, and there are only two, I think. And then Aquaman meets with some woman. I don't know what her name was. I don't know if they mentioned it or not, but he's like, oh, I need something, and I think we eventually just find out it's the trident he was asking for. But it was kind of left vague at that point. Anyways, so now the main villain has the second cube. So anyways, we get to the bugs, or the Legion, I believe they are also called, the Parabugs, and they're on the search for the last cube. And the main villain mentions Darkseid, which, you know, if you know Superman, or I believe he's mainly involved with Superman, Darkseid is a very obvious thing that, you know, that's probably something that's going to be coming up relatively in the future. It seems like that's, again, a part of their future plans as far as what DC is going, where it's going next. At any rate, so yeah, you know, he wants this power. He wants to take control. The pretty typical villain route, if you will. And he kind of just leaves the film for a bit. I'm referring to the main bad guy, supposedly. Anyways, they see this, they see the bat signal, Batman and the crew, the current crew, and Cyborg sees it as well. He's kind of separated from the others. And Jim runs down what's going on with the parademons, and then Cyborg joins them. And then everyone does the leaving part, which Batman is usually known for, but Barry's like, "What happened?" It kind of flashes off afterwards. So anyways, they see the Parabugs, and Cyborg begins the assault, and Wonder Woman joins in the fight. And Barry begins by saving people when Batman manages to say, "Save one and see what happens," and Barry eventually does that. So we got a pretty interesting battle going on, and the teamwork here is actually already like, oh, they're just a team now. So they work really well, just from completely out of nowhere. Which, you know, I guess some will argue, like, how do they get that good together? And I would argue, at least for the case for Batman and Wonder Woman, they already have that history of Batman versus Superman, so at least those two have some sort of chemistry, at least working together. The other two or three at this point are, I can't really say, I can't really defend how they are able to work so well with each other. Like, for example, the Flash moving in to give the sword to Diana in his super speed, and stuff like that. Again, just automatically knowing how to do good teamwork. So Wonder Woman saves Batman, and so on and so forth. Barry's leg is cut at some point, which he's unable to run for a good portion of time. They see that they're about to get, like, submerged in the water, which is when Aquaman finally arrives back on the scene of the movie. Although I would question how exactly Aquaman found the rest of them. There was, again, that sense of pacing and transitions. There's also that kind of little plot hole of how Aquaman even found the rest of the Justice League at that point in the movie, because he wasn't really there. You know, he was like almost convinced to join the Justice League, and then he's like, nah. And then he's like, oh, give me the trident, and then now he's like, oh, I'm here. So, I don't know. Anyway. Cyborg mentions that he has actually had the cube with him. I think they assumed it to be that it was inside of him. It never really showed it come out of him, at least I don't think it did, but anyway. And then Wonder Woman's like, oh, you know, technology without heart is bad. So I actually like that line because it insinuates that there is good technology, and I'm so glad that they just didn't throw technology under the bus completely, like so many other things tend to do when it comes to technology. Anyways, I'm really glad that they did a line like that. That line kind of really stuck out for me as a, you know, someone who likes technology and YouTube. And, you know, that's all done through technology, so, you know. Anyway, Batman plans to eventually use the final box to resurrect Superman, and Cyborg is down with this idea, though the rest of the team is a bit iffy. So Batman mentions how Superman was more human than he was, which is actually an idea I actually really like, considering that Superman is the overpowered, you know, giving grace of God, or whatever you want to call him. And Batman's over here saying, yeah, he's a better human than I was. I actually really like that bit. So anyways, we cut to Cyborg and Flash, which is Cyborg digging in the grave while Flash looks on, so they're getting the body. And then they move into the base where I believe it was, I believe they jumped into LexCorp, where, Lex, did the whole, Doomsday thing, and then they bring Superman there. I believe that was the base. I'm not 100% sure again. And they place Superman's dead body there. They do this whole thing with the cube, and Flash sparking the cube at this very second of, like, you know, of the cube touching the liquid. And I think, now I could be wrong, this is me completely assuming, but I think the timing of this is actually what caused something later in the movie to happen, where it shows the water touching the cube first, technically, and then it shows Flash touching it like a nanosecond after. I could be wrong. That could just be my imagination. Someone tell me if... Because I'll just say it now, Superman does come back, and he does start attacking the rest of the Justice League. And I think it had something to do with him being resurrected in the way it happened. Again, that's just my theory, if you will. So anyways, yes, Superman does resurrect. He comes back up, and he floats up to the main surface, and the rest of the Justice League jump up there with him. Cyborg, like, auto-targets Superman for some reason, but Superman decides he's gonna fire beam the hell out of Cyborg before that can even happen. So they all begin to fight Superman. Superman is just absolutely wrecks everyone. Wonder Woman stopped. And this is the moment where I was like, okay, Superman, you are the guy, because Flash does his, super speed, and we see Superman, he's looking at the other two that are holding him back, and then Flash is running around this way, and Superman actually starts to track him, and Flash is just like, oh shit. And like, that was the moment I was like, or even I was like, oh shit, Superman, what the fuck, man? Jesus freaking Christ, how fast are you? So Superman was able to keep up with the Flash. That is now, I guess that's now confirmed. I guess. It was always, I felt like beforehand it was always implied that the Flash could run faster than Superman, but I think they're starting to shift that to the direction where Superman is actually faster than the Flash, because he went in his super speed mode and Superman was able to keep up, and not only keep up, but punch Flash out of that state. So there you go. Woo. So Batman decides that after being choked out for a bit and Superman getting a revenge line of, do you bleed? He brings in Lois Lane, or he has Lois Lane called by Alfred, and she arrives, and this is what allows Superman to return to normal. And we get a little tension when the rest of the Justice League return back to the base, and Aquaman is sitting on Wonder Woman's lasso, and he begins, talking about how everything's kind of messed up and whatnot. And there's other tension that happens along those lines. Or maybe that happened a little bit later, and this is just, the tension part happens. Anyway, Lois Lane has her little kiss-out moment with Superman, and it's nice and cute. Meanwhile, Wolf is spreading out his, evil stuff, his evil spike stuff, and the League set off to go Anyways, no, this is when Aquaman now goes off, right before they, I believe they, like, set off. Aquaman has the lasso under him at this point, and now he's, like, telling the truth, and he's like, oh, Wonder Woman, you're hot, we're probably gonna die, and stuff like that. It was pretty funny. Anyways, Batman starts the assault, and meanwhile, the families that are in the vicinity are trying to flee. We saw a little bit of them throughout the movie, but, you know, they're now trying to flee this area. The others come in support of Batman, where Batman was assuming to probably sacrifice himself in order for the rest of them to move forward, but Wonder Woman was not having any of that, so she had the rest of the team support Batman in his charge. Aquaman shows off his trident skills as he kills some bugs. Cyborg has the assist on that in some ways and forms. Wonder Woman begins her fight with Wolf, and she's not doing so hot. Cyborg, being the sort of centerpiece of this movie, surprisingly, ends up having to be the one to hack the three cubes apart because they're coming together, and that would mean the end of the world, probably. So Cyborg's trying to tear them away, and then he's literally torn away by Wolf. And Woman tries to do some team-up stuff there. Meanwhile, Wolf tears off Cyborg's leg. It's a robotic leg, so, you know, we could probably just put it back on anyways. And this is where it happens. Superman finally arrives, back on the scene, back to do what he does best, and completely just pushed Wolf out of the way, then go to rescue some people along with Flash. Flash was running towards some people to save them. Superman was able to fly at the same speed once again. And he was also able to outbeat the Flash, and he was able to actually save an entire building. Superman comes back, beats out Wolf again, helps Cyborg separate the cubes, and this apparently was even straining for even Superman and Cyborg combined, so this must have been really powerful stuff we're dealing with. Anyways, meanwhile, Aquaman and Flash are holding off Wolf. Then Wonder Woman does like this sliding fake out towards Wolf afterwards, and Superman does his ice breath, and this allows Wonder Woman to come back in from the opposite side, sort of like a flanking move, able to chop off his Wolf's battle axe, I want to call it. I don't know if that's what it is, but it looks like a battle axe. And this allows him to finally feel fear, which allows the parabugs to go towards him because they feed off of fear, literally. They just, you know, that's how they work. So once she does that, Cyborg lets out a vintage booyah, and they go into their hero pose. And afterwards, Bruce talks with Clark as their human counterparts. I say human, also referring to Batman, I guess. So yeah, anyway. Flash saves his dad because Batman has super money, while Lois Lane narrates how the darkness is finally fading away, and how Bruce wants to build the Justice League table. They're setting it up, and everyone does the hero pose once again, and the movie ends. And apparently there was 2 after-credit sequences, more about Superman and Flash having another race of some sort, and then apparently after that there was something about the next setup of, I don't know if it was Darkseid. I didn't see it myself, because I didn't know DC would do that. They would do the whole Marvel thing, but apparently there's some sort of setup of whether it could be Darkseid or a new Green Lantern or something, I don't know. But as far as this movie is concerned, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty solid movie. There were some parts that were a little bit rushed, but I do understand there are a lot of heroes on screen. There are 5 to deal with, 3 of which you have to kind of build their stories here. And I think they did an okay job with all 3 of them, to be honest. none of them really excelled past expectations. I think they all kind of met the expectations of what their backstories should be. So I think they were solidly done. The acting was pretty good. It was solid all around. The balance between the comedy that's actually in this movie, that it actually works. With Bruce's like sort of dry wit and the rest of the Flash's sort of energetic sort of style, and Aquaman's sort of carefree kind of comedy coming out here and there. Wonder Woman plays it a lot more serious throughout the movie. I don't think she has any funny lines, but then again, it's that balance coming through. And Cyborg is the other end of that more serious tone throughout the movie. So I think they did a pretty good job of balancing out the team. Again, it does suffer through some pacing issues, as I mentioned a few times in this movie, but I think it gets there. I think this is a pretty solid team-up movie, considering all of the issues that were, prefacing this movie. I think they pulled it off pretty nicely. I think this is a pretty solid follow-up to Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is the movie that probably kicked this whole thing off to begin with, to be completely honest, because Wonder Woman is that movie that sort of revamped the sort of DC style of movie. So, Wonder Woman's gonna be that pillar. It was that pillar, and now the rest of the team was able to finally get here, and we shall see if DC will continue to flourish from here on out. Hopefully that is the case. We have seen good DC movies before, The Dark Knights, stuff like that. And there are a few other minor issues, like the villain is kind of hit and miss at some points in the movie, but overall, I would still say I enjoyed this movie. As I mentioned in my Batman vs. Superman review, I actually did like Batman vs. Superman. I know there are a lot of people who had issues with that movie, and again, I'm not even going to argue. The pacing of that movie was bad, and I think it clearly shows even here. The pacing is still an issue. I definitely think DC needs to figure out that aspect of movie making, figure out how to do that pacing, because that is going to start coming back, and I think it's going to start biting them harder and harder as they continue to try to make these movies. But I have to get a score, so I give it a solid 7 out of 10. But I feel like there is once again something missing, and y'all know that challenge is coming. But first, I gotta make another challenge video first. I got 2 for 2 now, and I'm ready. I'm building up to it. So here we go. 7 out of 10, pretty good. Check it out for yourselves. We'll see if DC can make it. I think they have a chance. We'll see. But anyways, if you enjoyed this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and check out that link in the description. And please feel free to donate. I need it now more than ever, guys. It's times are super tough as my washing machine goes off in the background. I don't know if you could hear that, but I could. Anyways, until next time, everyone. Bye!